Greetings, greetings, greetings. I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, a talk show based here in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. And we are going to have a conversation about COVID-19 and the workplace. I have two very special guests that I am so excited to talk to. I'm going to read you their bios briefly, but while I'm doing that, in the fashion of Nicole and Conversations with Nicole, this is an interactive live. So I want you to, in the comments, tell us where you're from. Put your city and your state in the comments, and we will definitely give you a shout out. Again, this is interactive. So we want to encourage you to ask questions, um, engage in the conversation, put comments in. I will give the disclaimer, even though this is a COVID conversation, we are not health professionals, we are not legal advisors. But we do want to have this conversation around COVID-19 and the workplace and the impact that it's had, and is still having, in our everyday life. So, without further ado, I will introduce my first guest, Miss Monique Akanbi. She is from Miami, Florida. She is an HR professional with a broad based experience in senior leadership in all aspects of human resources. She has over 15 years of HR experience in the public school and private sector in various roles and disciplines. She has earned her degree in public administration with a specialization in HR from Barry University. She is a master examiner and mentor with the Florida Sterling Council, and she has obtained her HR certifications. Currently, she is serving as Field Services Director with the National Society for Human Resource Management, also known as SHRM, and she resides right here in Tallahassee, Florida. So, welcome, Miss Monique.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me.
You are very welcome. Thank you for being here. And then my next guest is Miss Teresa Nick. She is co-owner of Catering with Care Cafe right here on the south side of Tallahassee. A native of Tallahassee, Florida, she received her bachelor's degree in accounting from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Go Rattlers. She graduated, after graduating, she spent 25 years working as an accountant and auditor with various state agencies and nonprofits. And then she later returned back to FAMU to earn a master's in applied social sciences, with a concentration in public administration. In 2014, she and her husband opened the doors of their very own cafe and catering company, and her work and education experiences provided a valuable framework which she capitalizes on for future development and growth of their cafe and catering business. She is a community gem. um, Catering with Care is always giving back and doing great things for our community. And so, again, without further ado, I welcome Miss Teresa Nix.
Thank you. Thank you
Our
very much.
pleasure.
So glad to be here.
Yes, 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 yes. So we got folks chiming in. Raymond from Newport News, thanks for watching. Dr. Monica is here from Tallahassee. Thank
Yay.
you. Thank you for chiming in. And Mr. Delbert Floyd from Miramar, Florida. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. So it's 2021, December, but we are still, experiencing a lot of new normals. We're still trying to figure it out as it relates to the coronavirus and the effects. So let's start with you, Teresa, because, you know, March of 2020, things shut down. You have a whole restaurant, right?
Right.
A whole restaurant that now you cannot have people coming in there, you can't even, have your employees in there providing any food for a short amount of time. But tell me, kind of walk me through how that experience was and kind of where you are today.
Okay. Well, if COVID wasn't enough by itself, we were also moving. We had planned to
Mm,
move before COVID even reared its ugly head. And
mm-hmm,
so that was the first obstacle. We were trying to figure out if we wanted to move forward with the move or just kind of sit tight where we were and hang on, to the funds that we had. But we went ahead and we pushed forward and we did move. And like you said, we were not able to open the restaurant for a while because of the mandates that had been placed. And then when we were able to, open, of course, it was 25% and 50% and so on and so forth. And so we pretty much had to change the way that we did business. We had to pivot, we had to adapt, as many other organizations had to do, and just to be able to stay afloat. Um,
mm-hmm,
Initially, we were obviously impacted with our sales because of the lack of customers. And as time went on and things began to open up, that was no longer the issue. But we're still being impacted by COVID even today. We're dealing with the supply chain issues presently. And so that's presenting a problem for us in being able to secure, the inventory that we need to be able to function. So it's been an ongoing battle. It's impacted different phases of our operations, but all of it impacts our bottom line. So we're still in the fight.
yeah. Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. We are seeing it, I think, also in the grocery stores where, a lot of those shelves are empty. And even though you go back week to week, they still are empty. So certain
Exactly.
products you just cannot get, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, that we've seen in the news or read about that there are these vaccine mandates that the president has put out a vaccine mandate for all of the federal employees. I believe they were required to be vaccinated by November 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. And then contractors with the federal government have to have their vaccinations by the beginning of January. And there's also a push to encourage employers of 100 that have more than 100 employees. They must get vaccinated or at least have their first shot by, I believe, it's January 4th. So, what's your thoughts on that as an employer? And I know you don't have, you know, nowhere near that size of a operation, but share your thoughts on, the vaccine mandates.
Well, I mean, I am a small employer, as you said, and so some of that does not relate to us. But I'm personally for the vaccinations.
Hmm.
We have not mandated it within our company, but we have had conversations with our staff, and they have disclosed, whether or not they've been vaccinated. And I'm very pleased to say that the majority of them have, to my knowledge, either been vaccinated or, they actually contracted COVID. And so they have some level of immunity.
Hmm.
But again, we've not made any mandates in that regard. Certainly, we support vaccinations. My husband and I have both been fully vaccinated, and we're slated to get our booster shot soon. So,
Hmm.
um, but I don't know how. I think that if we were to mandate it, I really don't see that being an issue with where we are because many
Hmm.
of our employees are family, and so I think that that gives us an upper hand as far as
Definitely.
being able to tell them what to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and Monique, bring you in on this conversation
Mhm.
because this is it's a hot topic. This whole vaccine mandate, and part of the conversation has been around the onus of who this falls on, in terms of you know if the employee doesn't want to be vaccinated, now they're asking that they be tested on a weekly basis. So does the cost of the test fall on the employee or on the employer? So what are you hearing out there in the HR arena as it relates to that?
Absolutely. So, OSHA, which is the Office of Safety and Health Act,
Mm-hmm.
has put out guidance that employers are not required to pay for the expenses for employees that have no desire to be vaccinated, but have to take the test weekly. I have seen organizations that have assumed that cost. And I spoke with an organization a few weeks ago where for them it is an expense of about $1 million for them to pay for testing for their staff that does not or has not been vaccinated under this new guidance. And so it's completely up to employers to decide if they want to absorb that cost or pass that cost on to the employee. It's a hard balance because one, they want to make sure employers want to make sure that they are protecting their customers and protecting their workforce, either through vaccinations or through the weekly testing. And then also being mindful of expenses that their employees already have, the cost of living. And so some employers are faced with not having the ability to absorb those costs. And so it has been shown in a form of increased health premiums. Some employers have passed on some of that cost to the employees, or the employees are responsible for paying for that for that test weekly. So it's a balance of two, and it can go either way. However, there is no requirement for the employer to absorb that cost.
Okay. Yeah, that's been a big one. So, have you heard anything about vaccination plans or COVID plans as it relates to employers, and what does some of that look like?
So I'll share from my experience from my previous employer, which is the League of Southeastern Credit Unions and Affiliates. When the vaccine first became available to the masses earlier this year, what we did was we incentivized our employees. While it wasn't mandatory, we incentivized our employees to become vaccinated, and so through that incentive, we were able to get over 60% of our workforce vaccinated. Now we had a full plan, and it was over a span of several months that we gave employees the opportunity to be vaccinated, and we offered them time off to obtain both of the vaccines if they were taking the Pfizer or Moderna, or the one dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine as well. So we wanted to make sure, because we recognized that this was something new as an employer, and it was also something new for employees as we all tried to navigate through this. And little did we know that in December of 2021, we would still be dealing with this. So many employers began putting plans in place as it relates to vaccines or COVID-19 plans. And a lot of employers, which I'm pleased to know, is that they started prior to any legal mandates. And that's the key, is to be proactive and begin to put these plans in place, or kind of plan for worst case scenario in the event that happens.
Okay. No, that's, again, good to know. I know, as an HR professional, I'm sure that these types of policies are not anything that you ever thought you would have to be trying to come up with.
Not at all.
Yeah. But it seems like, I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this. It seems like the whole, pandemic has, like, I don't know, revealed some things that were going on that, we really weren't talking about. So as it relates to racial unrest, as it relates to maybe people just not being satisfied with their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because of the stimulus, because of unemployment, which was increased, this gave them a leg up, maybe an opportunity to do some different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like things are not going to ever quite be the same again. What do y'all think?
Not at all. I said in March of 2020, we were all impacted by kind of the health implications of COVID-19. And so while that side is very, I don't want to say unfortunate, but that was a reality that we all had to deal with. A lot of us were impacted personally or through individuals that we know that that contracted COVID-19, that succumbed to the effects of COVID-19 or, experiencing death as a result of it. But what I also said back then was that COVID-19 was going to breed two things. It was going to breed innovation, and it was also going to breed efficiency with employers.
Right.
And we started to see that. We had employers for years and years and years were not open to remote work. And then what was that, March 13th? I always remember Friday the 13th because that was pretty much the last day we were all in office.
Yes, it was.
We immediately was able to transition our entire workforce to remote work. And so what we saw at the organization that I was with was an increase in productivity, ironically, when we went to remote work. And that organization has since decided to remain in a remote environment. I mean, there's less overhead for them. It's no longer the traditional going into the brick and mortar to go to work. It was no longer the traditional 9 to 5 work schedule. And so I don't think we'll ever get back to that. I think that this was kind of the jolt that we all kind of needed in a way to just kind of rethink things and rethink how we get work done, rethink what is important to us as, what we value, time with family. A lot of us were kind of were confined in our homes and probably pulled our hairs out. I had to play the role of Monique, the HR professional, Monique, the principal, Monique, the teacher with my kids, Monique, the lunch lady, so we all had to wear many hats.
Right.
But I don't think we'll ever go back to what we would say is normal. I don't like the kind of returning to normal or the new normal. I don't think it was ever normal, if you ask me. I think it was just regular. It was a way of life that we had become accustomed to. And so now this is just something new that we're all navigating through.
So, you said some things that I think lend themselves to a segue to our topic of the Great Resignation, because as a result of all of the things that you listed, we've had this happen in terms of people just leaving their jobs.
Right.
Yeah. So, Teresa, what's your thoughts about that?
I think that the pandemic itself is keeping workers away out of the labor force, and there's several reasons for that. Particularly, I know you mentioned earlier about the health risk. And when you think about frontline workers, particularly in the sector that I'm in, restaurant, and even bars and retail, I think that they have quit at the highest rate, those particular workers. And it kind of lends credence to the idea that people are genuinely afraid of the hazards that are associated with in-person work. And that's one of the factors that has made many people not return, to the workforce. There's several other things. I know you mentioned earlier, Nicole, about the, the unemployment and all the other funding that was kind of put out there to kind of level off the downturn, with the stimulus checks and the enhanced employment and the increased food stamps. And people were actually able to save money at all income levels, simply because they had this additional funding coming in and they weren't spending as much. When you think about entertainment, I mean, we weren't able to go anywhere or do anything, basically. So people were actually able to hang on to, a little bit of what they had. And I think that may have led some people to think, well, I don't want to go back. They're afraid, and they have that little extra money to hang on to. And people have had time to think and reevaluate and reassess their careers and their lives, and they're making different choices as far as what they want to do. And so I think all of that, kind of lends itself to people not wanting to return to the workforce.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing it. So Monique, I'm going because I actually first heard you say the Great Resignation in a recent virtual conference that took place. And I was like, that really does kind of describe what is going on. So give a little more insight in terms of what that term means and what's happened as a result of it.
Absolutely. So, as a result of COVID-19, there has been a surge in resignations. I was just reading an article published by the Harvard Business Review where 4 million workers, American workers, resigned just in the month of July. And so, Teresa, you mentioned, turnover in retail and in the service and food service industries. That turnover was always high in those industries, but double and triple that now as a result of COVID-19. And so what has been coined as the Great Resignation is that we're starting to see such an increase in resignations, and that could be for various reasons. And so there's a lot of data and a lot of surveys that have been conducted, whether it's through SHRM or other researchers, to identify what truly is kind of that root cause of people, resigning, or leaving the workforce. And if they're leaving the workforce, what are they doing? Right. Because I think that's the big question. It's like, okay, well, if you're leaving the workforce altogether, what are you doing? And so I think it's a mix of two. I mean, I think that I've started to see a lot more retirements occur within the last 2 years. I've started to see more changes in industries where someone may have stayed in a specific industry for the majority of their career. What COVID-19 has done is it has made them rethink, and back to what you said, Teresa, reevaluate and reassess. And so we're starting to see a lot of transition in industries. But the Great Resignation is as a result of this pandemic. Turnover numbers are extremely high. I mean, SHRM published an article earlier this year around the spring timeframe, which was coined the Turnover Tsunami, and that was that's what it is. And I have to say, I'm a product of the Great Resignation. While I'm employed, I've changed 2 jobs within the last year, which is unheard of for me.
Right.
But I think people have started to identify there are other options that are out there, whether it's a different industry, whether it's a different sector, whether it's a whole different career path, or whether it's just retirement. But we're starting to see an increase in resignations. And according to a recent SHRM article, over 40% of the workforce are actively looking for other jobs. And so if you think about that, you think about from an employer standpoint, that's very challenging. Turnover in itself is a challenge. But then you add the increase in turnover and trying to retain top talent and meet your business goals and objectives and service your customers. It's a very hard balance.
It is. So we got a question from Seta.
Okay.
And she wants to know, so does that mean there are more jobs out there because people are leaving them?
So I would say yes. And it's a combination of two. There's the creation of jobs, right? Because what COVID-19 also has done is created new job opportunities. But a lot of it is going back to the resignations of either not re-entering into the workforce, just completely resigning from the workforce. And so it has been a challenge for employers to retain employees or to even just hire them in itself. I mean, I can't go anywhere and not see a hiring now sign, and never did I imagine that I would ride by a Starbucks and it be closed midday, And so, yes, that has been, that's one of the reasons why there are more jobs, because there are more individuals leaving the workforce.
Yeah, no, good point. And, I think that, like you said, there's been some job creation, maybe some other jobs that didn't exist previously. But now with remote and, teleworking, it's just allowing for some other opportunities. So Dr. Monica, and let me say, Princess said, good evening to everyone. And we
Good evening.
also had Lori on here as well. So thank you all for tuning in. And I want to, before I get to Dr. Monica's question, I want to hear from the audience in terms of, your experience. Have any of you participated in the Great Resignation, if you will, in terms of leaving a job in the last year and a half or so? Let us know in the comments. All right. So Dr. Monica said, what are employers doing to improve on workplace values, environment, and nurturing?
Very good question. And I think that the effects of the turnover has forced employers to reevaluate what their values are, what benefits are offered to employees. One of the top benefits that employees are looking for is flexibility, especially in this remote environment. Going back to why, do I have to come into the office Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30 or 9 to 5, whatever that quote unquote traditional work schedule has been. So a lot of employers have reevaluated benefits that are offered. More employers now, I used to see a lot in the healthcare industry as it relates to sign-on bonuses, but now we're starting to see other employers in other industries offer sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses.
Listen, Wendy's got a sign-on bonus.
Yeah. See?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Starbucks probably got a sign-on bonus. So it's a different day.
Yes. And it's forced them to look at their culture as well, because it is an employee market. And so employees have options. If they want to be the employer of choice, they've had to take that hard look in the mirror to say, what is our workplace culture? And is it the culture that someone would want to work? And if that's not the case, then they've made changes. I mean, if you look at what employers have done within the last year with focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, we see a lot of organizations that have really put that at the forefront of their strategy and being very intentional and as to how they address it. Also, career development. And we know when budgets are cut, the very first thing that's cut is training. And what employers are doing now is they're shifting those dollars back to providing those development opportunities to attract and retain talent.
Absolutely. Lori said, yes, Wendy, to stay relevant.
Oh boy.
All right. Seta said, is that high paying jobs or more retail, government or state job openings? So are we seeing a higher pay for retail, or what do you are? And I don't know if you can answer that, Monique, but what are you kind of seeing?
I think that there has been such a disparity in pay. And if you think back to even just what the work that has been done to raise minimum wage, and to be able to kind of elevate minimum wage, you're starting, as those positions, as the wages become higher, then
Mhm.
some of those hiring paid jobs, that's closing that gap. So then what they're doing, I mean, I had an employee um, early last year say to me, my daughter works in retail and she is making $15 an hour. And in my position here at the time, it was paying $17 an hour. And so for her, there's that I can go and work in retail and make just as much. And so I think it's a combination of the two. And so it's that balance of elevating minimum wage, but then when you elevate minimum wage, then that what do you do with those higher paying jobs?
Right.
Mhm. Exactly. So yeah, Teresa, I was kind of curious, again, from a small business owner standpoint, we've been hearing the conversation around minimum wage being raised to $15 here in the state, and it being done incrementally over the
Right.
years. But for maybe your staff that has already been there and has been loyal to you or what have you, and they what do you do? What do you do as it relates to that? If you are starting out the new person, at a significantly higher rate than you did, your tried and true, loyal employee.
Right. Right. Well, I guess luckily, they're tipped employees, so they're able to supplement
Right.
their income by the level of effort that they give. But it would be difficult for us. I mean, it would
Mhm.
really be difficult, and that's the honest truth. I really don't know how we would be able to bring everyone up to that level, whatever that level is for tipped employees, and even our back of the house staff. They'd have to be brought up to that minimum wage also. So,
Mhm.
we'd have to find ways to cut costs and be able to increase our revenue stream. And so, I mean, we just have to make it work, but it would definitely be difficult.
Mhm.
It
I,
really
I
would.
just think that it's no easy answer. I mean, you want people to have a living wage, but
Exactly.
that means everything else is going to go up,
Right.
Yeah,
right?
it's a domino effect, right? And so
Yeah.
going back to supply chain and the cost of things are
Mhm.
increasing now. So how do where do you shift that cost to? Where do you shift that
Exactly.
expense to?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
hard balance.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I want to address Princess's comment. She said she left the job because of COVID and has considered a change in her career as an independent contractor as a nursing assistant, because of fear of getting
Fear.
COVID
Yeah.
again.
There's
Yeah.
that fear factor.
Yes.
Mhm. So, have you, either one of you, have you, I guess, experienced that in terms of hearing that, people they're afraid to maybe come back because of, maybe they contracted COVID and they don't want to contract it again, especially now now
With
we
all
have
the
a new
variants.
variant, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, but I know personally I was afraid for them, for my staff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I really, yeah, I agonized daily, especially early on when, so little was known about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt, responsible, that I was putting them in that position. And so, yeah, it was really difficult. But I mean, the option was to open or close. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's catch 22, do you close and then they don't have any income, or do you, stay open and subject them to, in-person contact? So yeah, it was agonizing.
Just put them in a bubble, Teresa, and
I
have
wish
them.
I could.
I think that's why it's important, for employers. And, Teresa, I applaud you for, genuinely being concerned about
Oh yeah,
your employees and doing the best that you can, one, to keep your doors open, but also to protect them.
exactly.
And employers are, first and foremost, that's what they need to do, and so there is a genuine fear. I have had that fear, although I am vaccinated, but I have seen, I have lost family members because of COVID. And so naturally, for me, there's that fear and that reality that my family has been impacted by it. But to the extent that employers can put policies in place or put procedures in place to protect their employees and protect their customers, then I think that puts a lot of the employees at ease. And I say to the extent too, because at some point, if they've done all that they can do, then that's what we're asking.
Indeed. All right, Dr. Monica has a question. What has been the impact on higher ed and corporate cultures?
So I'm not sure on higher education, but on corporate cultures, I think it has been that one, the war on talent, because what you saw on those larger corporations is that a lot of those organizations already had remote options, right? And so their access to talent was greater. And so now that other employers that may have been smaller or have had a different view on that have now changed that view and are open to remote employment, because now they see that they can get talent. They're not limited to a geographical location. It has required those corporate organizations to really step up their game. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the organization's culture. Again, is it an organization that has the values that have the same values that I have as an employee? How do they treat me as an individual, not as an employee? And that's what keeps individuals at organizations. And so what they've had to do is really take, again, that hard look at themselves and identify, what is it that we can do differently? What is it that we can do better?
Okay. Very good. Lori had a comment. She said it's difficult because as a country, we should have been slowly raising minimum wage so people could make a living.
Right.
That would have given employers a chance to do things incrementally. Yeah, I agree. Again, that's a tough one. So, we saw that there's a new variant, and we don't know how, fast it's going to move and what the damage is going to be. And then there's a lot of contention with the president's mandate for vaccinations. So, hopefully this new variant won't do, nearly the damage that the others did. But if we had to, if we, saw the numbers going up as a result of, you know, I hate to think about us going back to no, I know.
Don't even put it in the universe.
I don't even want to speak it.
Don't say it. We know what you're thinking. Just don't say it.
So I think that speaks to, though, the importance of the science. And again, we are not scientists or healthcare professionals, but the vaccine has been able to mitigate, a lot of infection, right? So yeah. My heart is heavy as I even think about this, but I know that healthcare workers have been just overworked with trying to help folks, and I just feel like we got to do our part, right? We got to do our part. And while that might not necessarily be, I think it's vaccine, but it's also us taking care of ourselves, right? Getting enough rest, eating well, drinking water, exercising. Those are the kind of fundamental things that we need to be looking to do as well to help mitigate some of this. So I just want to throw that out there. That's my little soapbox for the day.
Well, it's a challenge when things have become so politicized, right?
It has. Look, mask or no mask is politicized.
Yes.
They try to determine what your political party is based on whether you wear a mask or not.
Right.
Like, really? It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So yeah, I just, we've been talking around COVID-19 and the impact in the workplace. Are there any other I guess trends that you are seeing, Monique, in the HR field as it relates to this?
Yes, and mental health.
Mm.
I mean, the impact that COVID-19 has had on all of our mental health, and going back to taking care of ourselves, and mental health has been an important aspect of that, because we've all had to deal with either being confined to our homes, or just experiencing the effects of COVID-19 that it has had on ourselves, on our family or our loved ones. And so we have started to see and a more of a need to focus on mental health in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. And so have employers put any measures or means, either through employee assistance programs, or something that maybe gives counseling sessions to employees, maybe increase the number of counseling sessions that they can have access to, or something like that? Have you seen any of those types of trends?
Yes, absolutely. The Employee Assistance Program has definitely been a great resource. Also, what we have seen now is more education to supervisors on recognizing the signs of, when someone may seem overwhelmed or is just having a rough day, and being a little more sensitive. I know in the beginning of the pandemic, I couldn't stress it enough to my supervisors, because for them, it was frustrating for them, because they were so used to supervising a workforce that was in the office with them. And so then now you transition to, now I have to manage a staff that's remote. How do I do that? But then also, how do I extend grace during this time? And so there's been more education to employers around, and when I say employers, that is to the supervisor level, of what those signs are and what resources are available. And a lot of it has been through EAP programs, where employers have offered either weekly sessions, just weekly webinars, or individual sessions to their staff or to the workforce, to be able to help them identify coping mechanisms.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that that's something that employers are doing, because that is very much so needed. You just don't know. People show up and they look normal, but there's something going on upstairs, and sometimes it's not all that good. So, I am definitely a mental wellness and mental health advocate. So that again makes me really glad to hear that employers are considering that and implementing that, and are concerned about their employees' mental health. So
and normalizing that too, Nicole.
And normalizing,
normalizing that too. Saying it's okay not to be okay, but I need you to let me know. I'm not a mind reader.
Right.
You let me know so that I can support you and give you the resources that you need to become well.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely with us sitting with ourselves at home, that definitely has given us time to maybe process some things or deal with ourselves in ways that we hadn't previously. And so, a lot of stuff may have bubbled up that we didn't even, maybe was in the back of our minds, but, we've had to deal with it, or it's come up and we've had to contend with it. So again, that's yeah, you're right. Normalizing it is absolutely a must. Normalizing that conversation, that counseling and therapy is okay. It's okay to go talk to someone and get the help that you need. You may need medicine as well. So, and that's
Mhm.
okay. So, yeah, no, very good. Very good. Very good. Any other, any other things that you're seeing or any other trends as it relates to the Great Resignation or, incentives that maybe employers are giving for employees that get vaccinated? I'm sure education is a big thing, you know, making sure folks are well educated about the vaccines and
Mhm.
where they can go to get vaccinated, possibly covering any costs that might be associated with getting a vaccine, providing incentives to employees who get vaccinated or time off to go get vaccinated.
Mhm.
Right.
Um,
And that's a part of the mandate as well. So while employers are not required to cover the cost for testing,
mhm,
they are under the under the mandate from the Biden administration. They have to allow employees the
Mhm.
opportunity to give them time, not their personal,
Right.
their
mhm.
PTO banks, but up to 4 hours to go and get their vaccine as well. So we
Okay.
can't just mandate something and not
Right.
put items in place to assist them or to support them in that mandate.
Mhm. Okay. We got a comment from Lori. She said, I've heard from some vendors that people just don't want to work anymore since they got money from unemployment. I disagree with that concept.
So I haven't seen, ironically, I have not seen studies to support that because of the increase in
Right.
unemployment funds. That's the reason why people are leaving the workforce.
Mhm.
I think that it boils down to reevaluating and reassessing what's important in their lives. I
Okay.
mean, if you think about parents, and I say parents because it can be a father or a mother, that has had to make that hard choice of, do I continue to go to work or do I stay home because I don't have childcare? Childcare is an issue. There's a multitude of reasons why or that are contributing to the Great Resignation. Ironically, it is individuals that are in there kind of making that mid-career change. So these
Mhm.
are individuals that are anywhere between the 35 to 40-year-old range. That's the highest number of individuals that are contributing to the Great Resignation. But I haven't seen any data or any reports that support that purely the reason for the Great Resignation or a major contributor to the Great Resignation is because of unemployment.
Yeah, I mean, I know that certain governors of certain states uh, decided to cut off the unemployment aid in order to jumpstart the job market and kind of get things back to normal, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily see that has
That is
had
it's
good effect
Because
because Wendy's
it's
still hiring and got the signing bonus, right?
it's not an employment issue. It is a
right.
health concern.
Say
It is
that
a
again.
health and safety issue.
Exactly.
Say that again, Monique.
It is not an employment issue. It is a health and safety concern. It is a health and safety issue.
Indeed, indeed.
I mean, we were in the times of low unemployment, and so
Mhm.
that's not the. I mean, that's not the reason to you're trying to fix an issue with something that is completely outside of the
Right.
root cause
Right,
of that issue. But
right.
that's my soapbox. So
Okay, all right, that's all right. You entitled, you entitled. All right, Lori said, as discussed, I believe people realize they need to get paid enough to take care of themselves and their families. So again, that whole living wage,
Mm-hmm.
living wage. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm gonna allow you all to have final words. If there's something else you wanted to cover or talk about, we can do that at this time. If not, then I'll let you close out with a statement or, a sentiment as it relates to this whole topic of COVID in the workforce. We'll start with you, Teresa.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Well, COVID has certainly been challenging for everyone, but there has been some good that has come out of this. And I mentioned that we relocated, and for us, that has been a blessing. We appreciate the support from the community, from Nicole, who comes through
Yes, look, I'm
on
glad
a
y'all
regular
closer to the
basis.
house now. Listen.
Yeah, 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 I am. And I appreciate this opportunity just to be here and talk about COVID and how it's impacted, um, the workforce in general, but specifically the sector that I'm in, the
Mhm.
restaurant industry. And so, we don't know how much longer we're going to deal with this or have to deal with it, but you just have to, just hold on, just keep on keeping on. And
Indeed.
yeah, it's affecting everybody. It's not just
Mhm.
you. So
Mm-hmm.
we're all dealing with it in
We
different
all in this
ways.
together.
Oh yeah, definitely. So
Mhm. All right. Thank you so much. And Miss Monique.
Um, Thank you, Nicole, for this opportunity. And I just want to say that COVID-19, what it has done, it has forced us to focus on humanity and extending
Mm.
grace. And no matter what side of a political party or what your views are, again, it all boils down to extending grace and treating the whole person. So, what I would say is, I would encourage employers, it is a hard balance. I do not envy CEOs that have to make that hard decision to whether require vaccines for their workforce or keep the doors open, or whatever that looks like. Those hard decisions as the most senior leader of your organization, whether large or small. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, we're all human. And what we need to do is make sure that we're extending grace, that we listen to the genuine concerns of our workforce and identify how can we balance those concerns with the needs of the organization. And there's a way to do that, but you have to start with listening. You have to really um, genuinely care for your talent, care for your workforce, because
Mhm.
they are the ones there. That's your lifeline. Without your workforce, there is no organization. And so I just challenge employers to really take that genuine hard look at themselves and identify, what can I do for my workforce while meeting my customers' needs, and while keeping our doors open.
Very well said. Very well said. Yes. So, I think, as you said, we have to listen. And it all starts with a conversation, right? So we
Mhm.
got to keep the conversation going and get a better understanding for one another and try to continue to work together. I think, as you stated it, you know, we have seen a need to focus on humanity, and that's huge. It almost kind of makes you wonder, like, what we were doing before.
We were so cool people.
well, it
It was all
wasn't
about
this.
the bottom line, the bottom dollar, right? We were all focused on that bottom line. And what COVID has
You're
done is
right.
it has forced us to focus on the bottom line, but also focus on our people.
Hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you both. We're getting some feedback. Dr. Monica said this was instructive and enjoyable. Thank you. My mom is tuning in from Miami, Florida. Great conversation, food for thought. Thanks, Mom. Appreciate you tuning in. And thank you to our viewers, all of you who chimed in with comments and questions, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, Monique. Thank you, Teresa. Keep doing what you do. Teresa, I'll be down there tomorrow to get some breakfast.
We'll be there.
All right. So this has been Conversations with Nicole, vaccine, COVID, workforce conversation. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Conversations with Nicole, and we are on the Greater Works Network on Roku. So if you have a Roku TV player or a stick, add Greater Works Network, and Conversations with Nicole is there as well. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.